My sister told paramedics I was faking while my heart had actually stopped. And that moment changed everything between us. She's just faking it for attention. She does this all the time. We need to check her vitals right now. No, seriously, she's fine. She's done this since we were kids. Her pulse is barely detectable. Step back immediately. You're all overreacting. She just wants everyone to feel sorry for her. My sister told paramedics I was faking while my heart had actually stopped. Hi, I'm Stephanie. Growing up with my sister Natalie was like living with someone who saw life as a competition where only one person could come out on top. We were barely 16 months apart in age, but you'd think we came from completely different worlds based on how our parents treated us. Natalie was everything a daughter should be in their eyes. Gorgeous, charismatic, the type who lit up every room she walked into. Me? I was the quiet one, always had my nose in a book, the dependable child who faded into the background while Natalie soaked up the spotlight. And honestly, I didn't mind it much. I genuinely loved my sister despite her constant need to be the center of everyone's universe. I cheered myself hoarse at her volleyball games. I helped her with calculus homework she couldn't be bothered to finish. I covered for her when she'd sneak out at midnight to meet guys from the community college. That's what sisters do, right? I kept telling myself we'd grow out of this whole rivalry thing eventually, that she'd stop competing with me when I wasn't even in the race. I just wanted to be her friend. But Natalie never grew out of it. If anything, the jealousy got worse as we got older. When I got accepted to Yale with a full academic scholarship, Natalie locked herself in her bedroom for an entire week and screamed that Mom and Dad loved me more. Never mind that she could have applied to Yale herself but said the application was too complicated and she didn't want to write all those essays anyway. When I graduated summa cum laude and landed a position at Bennett & Pierce, one of Boston's top corporate law firms, Natalie told everyone at Thanksgiving that I was a soulless robot with no personal life. When I got engaged to my boyfriend Marcus, a kind-hearted architect I'd met at a friend's cookout, Natalie showed up uninvited to our engagement party and announced to the entire room that she was pregnant. She completely hijacked the whole celebration. Everyone who'd come to congratulate us spent the rest of the evening fussing over her instead. 3 weeks later, right before we were supposed to send out wedding invitations, she had what she called a miscarriage. The timing seemed almost too convenient, and I couldn't shake the horrible suspicion that she'd made the whole pregnancy up from the start. But I had no proof, and even thinking something that terrible made me feel like a monster. So I kept my mouth shut. Our parents enabled every single thing she did. They made excuses for every manipulative stunt Natalie pulled, saying she was just more sensitive and emotional than I was. They expected me to be the mature one, to understand, to keep forgiving and forgetting because that's what family does. I tried for 31 years. God knows I tried my hardest. The nightmare really started when I began having heart problems. I'd been feeling off for months before that, experiencing sharp chest pains, getting winded walking up a single flight of stairs, dizzy spells that made the world tilt sideways. At first, I blamed it on wedding stress and the brutal hours I was pulling at Bennett & Pierce. But eventually, the symptoms got bad enough that I scheduled an appointment with a cardiologist. The diagnosis was absolutely terrifying. Dr. Andrew Chen, a renowned cardiologist at Massachusetts General Hospital, gave me news that made my entire world shift on its axis. I had a congenital heart defect that had somehow gone undetected my whole life. The walls of my heart were dangerously thin, putting me at serious risk for sudden cardiac events. I want to schedule surgery as soon as we can, Dr. Chen said, his expression grave and concerned. This condition is life-threatening, Stephanie. I was terrified. Surgery on my actual heart. I asked if we could try managing it with medication first, and he reluctantly agreed, but with strict orders to report any concerning symptoms immediately. No exceptions. I told my family about the diagnosis at our usual Sunday dinner at Luigi's, our favorite Italian place in the North End. I debated keeping it to myself, knowing full well that Natalie would somehow turn my medical crisis into ammunition against me. But my parents needed to know in case something catastrophic happened to me. Natalie's response was exactly what I'd feared. Oh, please. There's nothing wrong with your heart. You're just anxious about the wedding. You always create drama when the attention isn't on you. I'm not creating anything, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I have test results. Dr. Chen showed me the echocardiogram. It's documented medical fact. Convenient timing though, right? Natalie's eyes flashed with pure contempt. Now everyone will fuss over poor Stephanie instead of focusing on anything else. What else is there to focus on? I asked, genuinely confused by her anger. She just glared daggers at me across the table. I found out later she'd just gotten fired from her receptionist job at an orthodontist's office for showing up late constantly and being rude to patients. She'd planned to announce at dinner that she was taking time off to find herself and would need financial help from Mom and Dad. My health crisis completely demolished her plans. Over the next few months, Natalie made it her personal mission to convince everyone I was either exaggerating or completely making up my condition. She'd roll her eyes dramatically whenever I mentioned feeling unwell. She'd make cutting comments about me being a hypochondriac desperate for sympathy. She told our aunts and uncles and cousins that I was perfectly fine and just being theatrical for attention. She's always been like this, Natalie would say to anyone who'd listen. Remember when we were kids and she'd fake stomach aches to skip school? This is the exact same thing, just more elaborate. I had never faked stomach aches. That had been Natalie, actually. But apparently, she'd rewritten our entire childhood in her twisted version of reality, making herself the victim and me the villain in every story. My wedding was scheduled for early June at the Liberty Hotel overlooking the Charles River. Despite my health concerns, I was determined to go through with it. Marcus offered to postpone everything, but I wanted to marry him. I wanted one perfect day where I was celebrated for the right reasons, where my life moved forward in a positive direction instead of always being about Natalie's drama. Natalie was supposed to be a bridesmaid at our mother's insistence. I'd wanted to avoid the inevitable disaster of excluding her, so I reluctantly agreed, hoping against hope she could be supportive for once in her life. Then came wedding week. Out-of-town guests flew in from Chicago, Austin, and Seattle. Final preparations kicked into high gear, and despite my best efforts to stay calm, I felt the stress physically. My heart had been acting up more frequently lately with strange flutters and skipped beats that Dr. Chen had warned me to monitor very carefully. The rehearsal dinner was at Harvest, an upscale restaurant in Harvard Square. Everything was absolutely perfect until it wasn't. Marcus's family had traveled from Portland and Providence. My extended family filled half the restaurant, and the wedding party was buzzing with excitement. Everything felt magical and right. Until halfway through the main course when something went catastrophically wrong inside my chest. My chest constricted violently like someone was squeezing my heart in a fist. My left arm started tingling with pins and needles. The restaurant seemed simultaneously too bright and too dark, like someone was messing with the lights. I tried taking deep breaths like Dr. Chen had taught me, but the sensation was getting worse, not better. I don't feel right, I whispered to Marcus, trying not to panic. Something's very wrong. He immediately went into protective mode. What kind of wrong? Your heart. I think so. It feels different than usual. Worse. Marcus immediately signaled for the check and told his family we needed to leave right away. Natalie, who'd been eavesdropping from across the table, rolled her eyes with theatrical exaggeration. "Oh, here we go," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Can't let anyone else have a pleasant evening, can we?" "Natalie, not now," our mother said weakly, but without any real conviction behind it. We made it to the parking garage before I collapsed onto the concrete. One moment I was walking toward Marcus's Honda. The next moment I was on the concrete floor with absolutely no memory of falling. I could hear people shouting, feel hands touching me, but everything seemed distant and muffled like I was underwater listening to sounds from the surface. Someone called 911. The paramedics arrived within 6 minutes, which Dr. Chen later told me was the only reason I survived. But those 6 minutes nearly killed me anyway because of Natalie. I was barely conscious, but I could hear her talking to the paramedics as they tried to assess my condition. "She's just faking it for attention. She does this all the time." We need to check her vitals right now," one of them said urgently. "No, seriously, she's fine. She's done this since we were kids." One of the paramedics, a woman named Jennifer, was trying to find my pulse while her partner prepared emergency equipment. "Her pulse is barely detectable. Step back immediately." "You're all overreacting," Natalie insisted loudly. "She just wants everyone to feel sorry for her. This is ridiculous. You're all enabling her attention-seeking behavior. If you don't step back right now, we'll have you removed from the scene. This woman is in cardiac distress." I tried to speak, tried to tell them I wasn't faking, but I couldn't form any words. My vision was darkening around the edges, tunneling down to a tiny pinpoint of light. I heard Jennifer say something about losing my pulse entirely. Felt the violent jolt of the defibrillator shocking my chest. Then nothing but darkness. I woke up in the ICU at Massachusetts General Hospital 2 days later. Marcus was asleep in a chair right beside my bed, his hand holding mine tightly. When he realized I was awake, he broke down crying with relief. "You died," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. "In the parking garage. Your heart stopped completely. They had to shock you 3 times to restart it. Then you crashed twice more in the ambulance on the way here. We almost lost you, Stephanie. We almost lost you." The full story emerged slowly over the next few hours, each detail more horrifying than the last. My heart had stopped completely in that parking garage. Total cardiac arrest from the congenital defect finally failing catastrophically. The paramedics had started CPR immediately, but Natalie had physically tried to stop them. "She kept insisting you were faking," Marcus said, his voice shaking with rage. "Even after they couldn't find a pulse. Even after they started CPR. She was screaming at them to stop, that you were just performing for attention." Jennifer, the paramedic, had to have 2 bystanders physically restrain Natalie so they could work on me without interference. The police charged Natalie with interference with emergency services and reckless endangerment. My family was shocked. Our parents tried desperately to convince me to drop the charges, insisting Natalie had just been confused and frightened, that she didn't understand what was happening. But that wasn't true at all. The paramedics' body cameras had captured everything. The footage showed Natalie clearly understanding I was in genuine medical distress but insisting I was faking anyway. It showed her trying to physically prevent treatment. It showed her continuing to interfere even after I was clinically dead and being shocked with a defibrillator. She knew. She knew I was dying, and she still told them I was faking. The case went to trial at Suffolk County Superior Court. Natalie's lawyer tried arguing she'd been in shock and not thinking clearly, that she genuinely believed I was faking due to what he called a pattern of attention-seeking behavior on my part. My lawyer demolished that argument by presenting my complete medical history, proving I'd never faked an illness, never sought unnecessary medical attention, and had actually delayed getting help for my heart condition until it became critical. The body camera footage was played in court. Watching it was surreal and absolutely horrifying. I saw myself collapse. Saw the paramedics rush to help. Saw Natalie pushing forward and insisting loudly that I was faking, that this was typical behavior for me, that everyone should just ignore me. She has no pulse," Jennifer said clearly in the footage. "Then she's gotten really good at faking," Natalie responded coldly. The courtroom went completely silent except for audible gasps. My mother was crying. My father looked devastated. The jury looked horrified. The jury convicted Natalie on both counts after deliberating for less than 3 hours. The judge sentenced her to 2 years in prison and 3 years probation, calling her actions shockingly callous and dangerous. "You stood by while your sister died and insisted she was faking," the judge said during sentencing. "You attempted to prevent trained medical professionals from saving her life. You prioritized your need for attention over your sister's life. This court finds your behavior unconscionable." Natalie screamed that it wasn't fair, that I'd always been the favorite, that this was just one more way I was making everything about myself. Security had to drag her from the courtroom while she was still screaming accusations. The story went viral. "Sister tells paramedics dying sibling is faking" made headlines everywhere. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC covered it. The body camera footage was released publicly as part of the court record, and millions of people watched Natalie trying to prevent my resuscitation. She became infamous overnight. I had the surgery to correct my heart defect. Dr. Chen said the cardiac arrest had actually made the surgery more urgent, but also gave them crucial information about what was wrong. The surgery was successful. My prognosis is excellent. Marcus and I got married in a small ceremony at Boston City Hall after I recovered. We'd cancelled the elaborate Liberty Hotel wedding after everything that happened. It was just us, 2 witnesses, and the officiant. It was perfect. Natalie served 18 months before being released on parole for good behavior. She tried contacting me immediately, sending letters about how she'd changed, how prison helped her understand what she'd done, how desperately she wanted to rebuild our relationship. I didn't respond. I'd spent my entire life trying to have a relationship with someone who fundamentally resented me for existing. Someone so jealous and competitive that she'd rather see me dead than successful or happy. Someone who watched me die and felt annoyed that I was getting attention. There's no coming back from that. No amount of therapy or remorse can erase the fact that she tried to prevent people from saving my life. She chose her jealousy over my survival. That's not a mistake or a momentary lapse in judgment. That's who she is at her core. And I'm finally, after 31 years, at peace with that truth.